Hi pals, it's me, Artie, they and pronouns only. The irony of me making this video whilst I'm sat here having chest pain. Also just in a bad mood, so I wanted to talk about what has been going on with me and my cardiology appointments and what the outcome has kind of been so far. So I was referred to cardiology in late 2022, like around November, for suspected POTS. I did some stand tests with my Fitbit at the time, provided them to my GP, talked him through symptoms I was having, and he put in a referral. And then I think relatively soon after that I had a 24-hour ECG done. I thought I had an appointment to see somebody in January of 2023, but it turned out to be actually that was the appointment for fitting the 24-hour ECG just at the wrong fucking hospital, and for some reason somebody told me it was an appointment that was still going, an appointment with a consultant, when it just wasn't. You know, actually the amount of times that these admin errors happened through my process so far with cardiology is somewhat worrying. I'd forgotten that happened. And obviously that appointment was then also given to somebody else, but somebody just told me that I still had the appointment. So things did not start great. From mid to late 2023, we called 3 times, I think initially June or July, and then I think sometime around October maybe, and then a couple times in December to check where we were on the waiting list, see what was going on with that. Everyone just kept saying that I'd be seen in December of 2023. All 3 people we spoke to had said that. It got to mid-December-ish and we still hadn't even had any appointment letter through, nothing on the portal, you know, just nothing to say I had an appointment anytime soon. A lot of the times in the UK, especially because our wait lists are so long, you would usually hear about that a lot more in advance. So we were starting to feel like something wasn't right, and we called again, and the last person basically said, well, all 3 people before that you spoke to can't read, and they were just going by the emergency list, like the urgent list, and you're not down as urgent, you're just down as routine, so you probably won't be seen until May of 2024. So yeah, eventually I got a call from, I don't know exactly who it was, I think just an admin person initially, who said that they were now going to be doing like some kind of phone call triaging basically. They'd opened up more clinics to allow their registrars, etc., to ring patients to kind of, triage them before any face-to-face appointments, put them on waiting lists for tests that needed to be done. I had that booked in to speak to somebody, and I mean, first of all, they rang me on a Sunday when my appointment was on like the Tuesday after that Sunday, and they were like, oh, I just finished my clinic early, so I wanted to see if anybody from Tuesday wanted to have the appointment now. I was like, honestly, no, I don't. Unexpected phone calls are a complete fuck no, fuck off. But also, it was Sunday. I don't want to do any of that on a Sunday. Thank you. Not prepared. Didn't have anything in front of me, you know. So then he called me on Tuesday, and I wasn't particularly impressed by the registrar I spoke to. He spoke over me a lot. He did not get a full list of my medications, did not get a full list of my symptoms, because he just really liked talking over me. He also just said a lot of things that I know are just not accurate or correct when it comes to things like POTS or dysautonomia, but as well just saying some things about what I did share of my personal history that didn't make any sense. One thing as an example was that I had said I've had these symptoms on and off through my life since I was a teenager, from my memory anyway, but like it's been a long-term thing, and the only thing I've really found that gave me much relief, or like that kind of helped some of the symptoms, was the steroids, and I hadn't really had a chance to even bring up the propranolol, so he didn't know I was on it. And because I said that thing about steroids, he took that to mean that it wasn't a long-term condition, it was something that I've gained out of nowhere, and I was like, I don't have the will to argue with you because you keep talking over me. So, and you keep cutting me off before I can finish telling you my list of medications and all these other things. That was one of them. And he also suggested the possibility of medication, but otherwise anything that comes up as confirmed around POTS or dysautonomia generally is all self-management, basically. And he listed everything, and I was like, yeah, I've done all of that. And the only things I haven't done are because, like, I'm not going to do those things without a specialist, because he suggested graded exercise, pretty much. And I was like, okay, do you have a program like that with the hospital? No, not for POTS. For other things, but not for POTS or dysautonomia. So I was like, great. Why the fuck would I do that at home then? He also couldn't find the previous 24-hour ECG. He was going to book me in for that, and I was like, I've had one. I had one done. And the only thing he did was arrange one test, and that was the tilt table test that I have already talked through on here. I went and had the tests done. I went through all that, obviously, in that video. All of the staff, including the registrar that was there, but a different registrar to who I've spoken to, were all very nice, but found I'd not been told what to expect of the test. After that, I had a very short and vague letter, in my opinion, about my results. I did email back with quite a long list of questions, which were not answered for 2 weeks, but the doctor had been off. I don't know whether he was off on holiday or whatever, but like, yeah, he wasn't at work, and that's fine. I've obviously waited longer than 2 weeks for other people to respond to me, but I just thought I would chase because it had been 2 weeks. But yeah, the letter was very short. I'm definitely used to longer letters from specialists. There was less clarity about whether he meant certain symptoms or certain diagnosed conditions. He didn't actually give me the full spectrum of the results in the letter for me to be able to look at, depict, and have more detailed questions. So a lot of my questions came from that. It said that I didn't meet the criteria for POTS, but didn't really explain why. Just said that I didn't reach the 30 beats per minute rise. I got to 28 beats heart rate rise, and nor did my heart rate go above 120. So this is the only very clear criteria I could find, and it's from a Canadian study, and I still don't really understand why I didn't fit this, because I mean, I do think it's a bit unfair to cheat me out of a diagnosis because of 2 points, but also the point where it's talking about a sustained raise in heart rate is just not acknowledged or discussed in the results that I was given at all. So I don't know if it was raised for long, and if it was, how long. If it wasn't, what was the result actually? And then wasn't super clear if there was a diagnosis he had given me or not. Okay, this one. In the letter it does say vasovagal syncope. I, again, looked into it, of course. Reflex pre-syncope, which, when I've looked it up, is basically known as several other things, including vasovagal syncope, which requires a drop in blood pressure, which did not happen in my tilt table test, except from after they provided the GTN spray under my tongue. I did not have blood pressure drop in my unmedicated 1 tilt. So I don't think that's enough evidence to say I have reflex presyncope or vasovagal syncope or whatever, because as well, when you look at the two things next to each other, sure, of course there's overlap, there's going to be, but a lot of my symptoms and the pattern of my symptoms over the years fit more with a type of POTS and not just reflex presyncope. Like, okay, sir. Also, in other things that I was reading is that when it comes to vasovagal presyncope or syncope, there is a delay and then what they call a frank syncope reaction, whereas with POTS there's more of a pre-warning of a bunch of symptoms of presyncope. So it will be those things like the lightheadedness, the vision disturbances, hearing your heartbeat in your ears, etc. Whereas when it comes to vasovagal syncope, like, you might stand up, be fine, and then suddenly just fucking conk out. That's basically the gist. And I have never, ever fit that profile. None of my experiences have been like that. And that's basically what the main difference is in what these two conditions look like. And he just repeated that I should try like self-management at home of my symptoms, even though we'd literally already had that conversation, that they don't work. If I'm finding it doesn't work, then to come back and we can try some medications. So the two medications he suggested, one was in the phone call first, then one was in the letter, both raise your blood pressure. Quick side note that the ivabradine one, I had another look and it's very, very conflicted about whether it does or does not raise your blood pressure. So I don't know, but either way, nobody's actually spoken to me through these medications properly. And most of the time my blood pressure is quite high, or like bordering high, especially in hospital. Not always at home, but definitely most often in hospital, so I don't really see why that was a good suggestion, really. And it's not like he'd asked me about my blood pressure either. He then rang me, it was the same doctor, continued to speak over me, kept repeating himself as if I didn't understand what he was saying, is that regardless of whether it's a POTS or dysautonomic diagnosis, the treatment's pretty much the same. I was like, yeah, thank you, I understand that you've said that 4 times. I already knew that before you said that anyway. But yeah, I was querying why it was not diagnosed as POTS specifically, so that it didn't really make a lot of sense, didn't clearly state anything like that, didn't clearly state any details as to why this decision had been made. And he said he was following the protocol they have, and I questioned further as I was only 2 points off of the 30 beats per minute heart rate rise. And most POTS, like information sites, charity sites, will say that diagnosis isn't based off of one test, it's based off of like an accumulation of tests and anecdotal evidence and symptoms being presented and being discussed. And it just kind of seemed like he was mainly just going off of the tilt table test, which I don't think is the correct standard of care anywhere. I also mentioned about the sit-stand tests and that they like those results should be in the letter my GP sent initially in 2022, but he just kind of kept brushing it off as like the tilt table is more accurate because it's a controlled test, even though again all of the resources say that symptoms vary from day to day. Just because you've had a tilt table doesn't mean it's an accurate representation of what you're like on like worse days or every day. And also I'd noticed when I personally went for the tilt table test that the room was relatively cool. You know, a lot of the other triggers for me weren't there. And also, like I said, they only tilted once when I was expecting more than one tilt. Some of my other friends in the UK have had multiple tilts for their tilt table tests. To be honest, I honestly just think that this registrar doesn't know how to read and conduct tilt table test results, to be honest. Like, that's becoming more and more clear to me during this process, especially while editing. Jesus. And whilst doing my research for this video as well, just to back up my points and make sure I was saying things that weren't a load of shit, also, it seems like these kinds of tests should be done early in the morning because that's more likely for a sensitive response to anything that can set off POTS. So it is recommended that tests like this be done earlier in the morning. Mine was at, I think, 3 p.m, 2 or 3 p.m, so nice one, mate. I have to jump back in on this one because I've just realised that one of my screenshots says that if you don't quite meet the criteria for POTS, but it's been highly, suspected that you have POTS, then you're supposed to be reassessed at a later date, preferably in the morning. What? They genuinely had... They were not going to do that. They definitely did not suggest that they would ever do that. They were just like, you are incorrect. The control element is that they can protect you if you pass out, not necessarily that the test is any better than anecdotal evidence. And that, yeah, whilst they do that, they can monitor your heart rate and blood pressure. But like I said, it doesn't necessarily make that more accurate than any other tests, especially if you're not really thinking about or including other tests. There's a lot of tests that can be done to show different things, including urine samples, which are never discussed at all. I was just querying those things because, if it wasn't POTS, genuinely fine. It just didn't make sense to me, and still doesn't. I don't feel like he really gave me a good enough answer. Because he kept talking over me, interrupting me, I just sort of said, I don't really feel like you're listening to me, which really set him off. He got really stroppy with me over the phone. He was really struggling to speak because he was clearly quite agitated after I said that. But then also he suggested that I was diagnosis fishing because I was questioning him. And I was asking questions about how he came to decide I did or didn't have a particular diagnosis. I wanted to make sure it was correct to seek specialist treatment. And I reiterated that, compression garments aren't easy to find when you aren't thin. The ones I have tried haven't helped. I already drink a lot of water. I have tried eating more salt. All of those lifestyle changes that they constantly go on about. I do all those things, but you can't always be perfect at those things. And even if you are perfect at those things, it doesn't always mean that your symptoms are going to be fine. Basically none of these things have really helped much. They can help in the moment when I'm having one of those attacks to help prevent whatever it is that causes syncope, passing out and almost passing out basically. And I also said to him that I wasn't comfortable doing an exercise program for POTS without specialist supervision, because that's basically what he told me to do, which is genuinely insane, especially for somebody with complex lists of conditions like myself, let alone just someone who's just been diagnosed with POTS. I mean, me and the registrar, who was in there with the tilt table test, were discussing how these conditions are all linked to each other in lots of ways, and it's very common to have a lot of the same conditions that I have, or very similar conditions. Where's that guy? Can I get him back? He on the phone also said there are no services for support in this particular area. So what now, bitch? After I said that, his demeanour did shift, and he became more reasonable again. He suggested that there is an autonomic specialist in London at King's College. So I asked if he would be writing that in a letter to the GP, and he said yes. But, at this point, I'm in no fucking rush. I'm exhausted. I've had enough of this shit. Get away from me. We did also then have a good discussion about the breathlessness and chest pain. And some of my recent scans, because as well, most of these people don't think that breathlessness and chest pain come with POTS and dysautonomia, which they do / can, but not always. And I have been worried that maybe there's a particular other reason for those symptoms. I wanted to check that it wasn't a heart related concern causing those things, and I mentioned my breathing test showed low oxygen in my blood, and at this point I'm kind of hoping that was a one-off, and it was just kind of oh, you just weren't feeling great that day, so your breathing was bad. I don't know. And that took 6 months as well. I think I was referred to that breathing test a year before I got my call to book the appointment, and then it was like 6 months before I actually even had the appointment because their fucking machines kept breaking. Like literally it would be day of, day before, and the machine would be fucking broken again, and I'd have to rebook for like several weeks in the future again. So that took a long time to even get those results when I really should have had those like 2 years ago. But yeah, I was concerned about the low blood oxygen possibly being caused by heart conditions, or whether it's more likely to be a lung related problem. Like these issues tend to come in like a circle. Breathlessness can be caused by a heart condition or lung problems. And then chest pain is also the same. It can be caused by lung conditions or heart conditions. And then the low blood oxygen is kind of like a weird combination of both of those symptoms, and it's just trying to work out which one is causing what. And he was like quite clearly having a look at the recent scans. He did say that there wasn't anything concerning coming up from like a heart point of view, although, you know, pinch of salt considering half the shit he said, but hopefully he is more familiar with common heart conditions that would come up. I'd said that I'd had a CT. He didn't want to do another one because like the exposure to radiation, blah blah blah. But the other option would be a type of stress test, which sounded really horrible to be honest. They would basically give you more and more of this medication that would cause your heart to work harder. So do I really want to do that but worse? Like I don't know. And it just makes your heart work harder and harder and harder. And like as they watch your heart, it might start showing certain parts of the heart may not be working correctly, but it's not a nice test to go through. And he could not see really any issues on my scan, and he said it would be very unlikely for me to have any issues related to it. So yeah, I said I'd leave the test for now, but I appreciate him talking me through it and having a look. Okay, to be fair, I don't actually know if I said that. I think I said the thanks, I appreciate it part, but I don't know. I did think that was kind of going to be it. But I do also have an appointment booked in for the end of August in person. But hopefully I'll be referred to this specialist at King's College in London, so he can take a look at the scans, order more if necessary, do other diagnostics if needed, and confirm or not the diagnosis I have been given. Like I don't know what the criteria is that they are using for it in Brighton and Hove, but like no one around here is getting diagnosed with POTS. It's all being diagnosed as orthostatic intolerance with like not a lot of specifics explaining what the difference is supposed to be. Yeah, so that my newest letter basically says that that's what my diagnosis is, whilst I don't meet the criteria for POTS, which again still doesn't make sense, but fine, whatever. I clearly have some autonomic dysfunction going on. Now I'm trying to keep a diary of moments where I do have near passing out episodes to try and provide, you know, some evidence, some kind of a pattern, but like they are a lot more sporadic. They have been more sporadic over the last 5 or so years, because I mean I'm not out and about much generally. Like I said, I've been on my steroids, which I feel like have helped, and they are part of treatment for a lot of POTS patients. And then yeah, now I'm on propranolol as well. I find that a lot of my symptoms are not as wild as they used to be, but I do still get them, just not as often and usually not as intensely. So I just wanted to keep a little diary when it happens, what I was doing, and like maybe some notes, you know, whether I might have been a bit less hydrated. Because I think really I think the main thing I really would like to see if I can find an answer to is because I don't think I hydrate well, because like I can drink a lot of fucking water and I'm always thirsty. I'm pretty much always thirsty and no one can find a reason for it. I'm not diabetic and I don't have high blood sugar. I am autistic though, so my current theories are either the dysautonomia, preventing me from hydrating properly, and that's why some of the urine tests are done, is to see how much sodium comes out of your pee throughout the day. And I think that's basically to do with whether you can retain hydration, basically, whether it's maybe a Crohn's thing or like a Crohn's medication thing. I've also, like, obviously with Crohn's you can get malnutrition, you can also dehydrate if your like colon and shit is not able to do what it's meant to be doing. I've also started to see that actually certain medications I'm on could also be adding to that, particularly my adalimumab, which is wild. I had no idea. Or the fact that the fact that I'm autistic and I'm just like hypersensitive to feeling thirsty, maybe. I don't know. So those are my current theories of why I'm always thirsty but not particularly hydrated. I've also got such dry skin, underactive thyroid, slay. But yeah, like, I know for a lot of my pre-syncope episodes, the triggers are usually mainly like a combination of heat in some capacity. I personally find it's worse for me in winter if I'm out and about, you know, dressed up, warm for the cold, and then I walk into a shop which is like 1,000,000 degrees. That's usually when I'm like, I'm going to die now. See you later. A lot worse than heat in the summer, which is where most people get their symptoms the worst. I do still get symptoms in the summer, obviously. It just doesn't hit quite as aggressively. It's usually a more slow progressing thing. Or just anytime I'm on the fucking tube in London. Anytime I'm on the tube, it is so hot down there all fucking year round. It doesn't matter what time of year it is. You are a roast fucking chicken down there. You're being fucking roasted. I hate it. I hate it down there. I would literally rather take a bus these days. I hate it. If they could sort out whatever that is, I would love the tube so much more. But anytime I get the tube, any time of year, it's always hot and I'm like 3 seconds away from face planting the fucking platform. My mum too. Both of us had a fucking tizzy last... When was that? It was coming back from Birmingham. So we'd had some drinks. That's the other trigger as well. Alcohol. Even a little bit. Even just a smidge. We had some drinks in the Birmingham train station, beginning of August. So wow, a year ago. Wow. Exactly a year ago. Like, it was fine. But then we got on the fucking tube and we both started feeling bad. So I could kind of deal with it because I'm much more used to this than my mum is. So I gave her the water to drink. We made it up and out, but like, yeah, our whole, because it's like all of the autonomic system that malfunctions during those moments. Because like, yeah, those moments are like every fucking symptom on the list. Your hearing goes funny, your sight goes funny, you get hot, you pour sweat, you're not sure if you're gonna piss yourself, shit yourself, throw up, and like your legs are weak. Like, that's what my pre-syncope episodes are like when they're like pretty gnarly. And like the only thing that helps is cold water, maybe a sugary drink. My mum prefers a sugary drink, but I prefer the cold water, a salty snack, and some cold air, like all over body, cooling off, and just like sitting down for a while. You know, when that happens, when you're on your own, it's really fucking scary. It's not exactly an able-bodied fun time, is it? And also I find that, yeah, standing up for too long can also be another one of the things that triggers those sorts of feelings. You know, standing up on a train or a tube for a long time that's quite hot, standing waiting in a line somewhere, whether it's for food, drinks, to get in somewhere, to get out somewhere. That's why I almost passed out at a festival, because there's nowhere to fucking sit. And then like, obviously the very typical like moving from somewhere low to somewhere high, and I don't necessarily mean always like sit to stand or laying to standing or laying to sitting. I mean like even like my last funny moment that I made a note of was when I was crouching down in Boots looking at the lower shelves trying to find a toothbrush, and then when I got up, like when, yeah, it was not fun. But yeah, I mean, like I've said in my propranolol video, the best thing to happen to me in my POTS or dysautonomia, whatever it is people want to be calling it, is beta blockers / propranolol. I've said this a million times. My symptoms were getting worse, that I feel like my autonomic system was generally just freaking the fuck out, and that was making it more likely for me to have these episodes. And yeah, beta blockers have just really chilled out a lot of those things. God, I always forget the face flushing, but yeah, face flushing is always as well another one of the things on that list. And like, you know, I know they're not suitable for everyone, but they have really helped whatever funky chicken things going on with me, literally by just slowing down my heart rate during the day so that I don't feel like I'm dying. I mean, I think as well, for a long time I always blamed a lot of these feelings on mental health when I am autistic and do have something going on with my autonomic system. But yeah, so I don't really know what's going on with this appointment at the end of the month. I guess I'll update when I know. I'm here with the update of what happened at that mystery cardiology appointment that was booked randomly for the end of August. It was a different registrar to the one that I've been in contact with so far. So yeah, it's a different registrar but under the same consultant. She didn't know why I had this appointment or who booked it or requested this appointment. She asked me if I knew, and we were like, no idea, mate. No idea. And yeah, of course the consultant was not there. She asked me what happened with the referral. Even though my mum said afterwards she saw that there was a letter from my GP practice that said it needs a consultant referral, so great. So I told her that I was booked in, and then it was cancelled and rebooked right away, and then just cancelled again. Nobody told me what was going on with that, so I contacted King's College cardio department myself to ask what's going on. And then someone from their team called me to say that it's because the referral needs to be done by a consultant, as they no longer take referrals from GPs as of the end of June earlier this year. She also asked if there was anything else generally, because she was like, well, yeah, we'll sort the right person doing the referral this time and hopefully you'll see somebody. And yeah, generally I was just like, well, yeah, I said like there's no support here, so that's why I want to see the specialist about having some kind of autonomic dysfunction. And like, you know, here it's all been lifestyle changes which I have already done and repeatedly said I've done them or cannot do them because of one reason or another. Like, there was basically no like suggestion of even supporting me to do those things, or things that I personally find a bit definitely dangerous to be recommending, especially for a complex patient, like the graded exercise. And I'd said to my mum later on that, like, you know, when that has been brought up under cardio, nobody has like even provided or said that they have any of the, like, I don't know if this is just a British thing, but like if you go to like general physio in the UK, they often provide you like basically like sheets of exercises. There wasn't anything like that given to me as like a base, like, oh yes, this is what is recommended for like early exercise therapy for POTS or dysautonomia by specialists to do at home, that's safe to do at home by yourself. You know, they weren't going to support me doing the exercises, they weren't going to run me through them, they don't have a program for it at the hospital. So it's like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, if I just go and fucking Google like graded exercise for POTS, I've done this before, by the way, I've looked into it. There's a lot of mixed information out there generally, but also with the other conditions I have and might have, like, exercise is not just like a simple thing for me physically. Like, I branched out a little bit recently for exercise, and I could barely do anything for 2.5 days, which is like relatively small considering, but like I was in so much pain and so exhausted that I could just basically not really do anything. You know, like there's no guidance either given to me, or like they don't have any guidance either from people who know more. No one will be monitoring me doing those things. It's just Go off and do it yourself. Bye bye. Annoying patient. She asked if my palpitations were any better, and I was like, yeah, from being on propranolol that they didn't even provide me. And I can't remember exactly how we got to this, but she asked if I was having any other symptoms like dizziness and such, and it's like, has nobody written down anywhere the symptoms that I'm experiencing from POTS/dysautonomia? So like, because I was unprepared, it wasn't very easy to like just regurgitate symptoms, because there's a lot of symptoms that come with POTS and dysautonomia. So I did my best. I remember face flushing, pre-syncope, dizziness, the full body sweats. She also asked if I'd ever checked my blood pressure when this happened, and I had to try to explain to her why that's daft. Why that's a daft thing to ask. Because for one, nobody's ever told me to do that. Nobody's ever suggested to do that. So why would I have done that? No, like, nobody has ever suggested that's a good idea to try doing. But also, most of like the worst of my episodes are not when I'm at home. What I didn't say when I was there was like the ones at home are easier to manage, more mild, more brief. But like, that's mostly because I can control the environment I'm in. I can control what I'm wearing, temperature of my house, being hydrated and fed enough without worrying that I won't have a toilet nearby. I'll have family members here who can help look after me if anything gets like, if I'm struggling. You know, I can manage and deal with my triggers a lot easier at home than out and about in the world. So because my episodes at home are a lot more short, it would be like next to impossible to capture it on like a blood pressure machine, because they would come and go faster than the blood pressure machine takes to actually work. But then like when out of the house, they're usually a lot more severe. I'm usually by myself or like maybe with another person. I'm trying not to completely pass out because I'm not at home. And like, you're also in that place where you're like, your body is just misfunctioning in so many ways. You genuinely cannot work out what's happening. All of your body functions are just freaking out. And then also you just can't think. And also, like, I didn't mention this either, but like, you can't necessarily even see when this stuff is happening, because I can get blurred or like tunnel vision with the severer episodes, or even like I get them with the shorter episodes, but they, like I said, comes and goes so quickly, it's not as scary. But like, yeah, when it's prolonged, it's really hard to do anything because you literally can't see or you can't make sense of what you are seeing. And as well, like, you can't really coordinate your body to do things. Like, I become a lot clumsier. So like, even if I did have a blood pressure machine with me, I wouldn't be able to do it myself. But also, like, you can get like smaller wrist ones, which are a little bit easier to like whip on and do quicker out and about, but they just don't seem to work on me. I think that's something kind of related to maybe my Takayasu's, maybe my EDS. Like, either way, like, I've got a very small vasculature. I don't remember if they used to work, but like, the last time I tried it, maybe a couple of years ago, it just wouldn't work on either arm. I mean, like, the right arm is not a surprise, but wouldn't even work on my left arm. So I've always had to use the proper ones, you know, with like the interface of like this size with the long cord and the big thing that goes on your upper arm. So like, because I can't use the smaller wrist ones, I'd have to have these massive like annoying things that would get tangled, and it's not that easy to try and put, I struggle just putting one of these fuckers on when I'm okay. They're not easy to put on by yourself on your own upper arm. But as well, like, depending on the situation when I'm out, you know, what clothes I have on, like, it's just not a feasible action to be doing. If it's a cooler day and I've got maybe a few layers on of long sleeves, how many layers do I have to try to take off whilst I'm like nearly passing out? Also, they couldn't find the 24-hour ECG that I did, even though it was part of like my letter and diagnosis written by the other registrar, saying that everything was fine besides some tachycardia. They also asked me what the report said, like what the results were, and I was just like, I don't know, mate, nobody ever sent it to me. I have no idea what that report says. You're in the department that requested it. They couldn't find anything related to the echocardiogram I had in 2018 in a different area, which was also part of the same letter I just mentioned, to do with my diagnosis, that said that there was nothing wrong. So yeah, I said again, I'm concerned about the diagnosis that I've been given, as I've been spoken to about both of these tests as if they have been like read, as if people have been able to access them. So if you can't access them, how did the other registrar access them to be able to write and diagnose me? But yeah, you're telling me that you can't see anything to do with either of these tests, report or imaging, and one of them was literally requested within the trust and conducted within the trust that we are literally in and you're working for right now. So I basically left that appointment knowing that they were going to redo the referral, and that was kind of it. So yeah, that's it, really. That's the update so far. We'll see if I actually get an appointment with the specialist. It's bullshit. Let me know what your experiences have been. Have you been diagnosed with POTS or some other kind of dysautonomic related kind of condition? Or do you suspect that you have something going on and don't really know where to begin, or you're just like starting that journey, or you've been brushed off a million times? Like, feel free to share your own experiences of what you've been going through if you have been experiencing similar. Did you have better luck with cardio or neurology? Because that's the thing, I know some people were diagnosed through neurology instead, but that's quite, like in my experience, it seems to be quite rare for people to go the neurology route. What helps you in particular? But yeah, that's kind of the end of my video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share my videos, watch my videos. We're working on the watch time now to get to partner. Thank you very much. Yeah, I do need to go and take off my jumper and lay down because I'm also getting head pain, which seems to also be common in dysautonomic conditions too. So I need to rest in the dark, in the cold, with something to drink. It's why I drink squash all the time, actually. In the UK, we have this stuff called squash. Some places don't have it at all. Some places call it something different. I don't know what you call it. But basically it's just a flavouring for your water. And the stuff that we have in the UK, the ingredients on the list include potassium and I think 2 different types of sodium. And it basically is a slightly better way of hydrating than plain water a lot of the time. Because as well, drinking a lot of plain water basically means you're dehydrating yourself by overhydrating. This is the thing. This is how maddening this shit is. It's like, oh, I'm doing so good. I've drank 3 litres of water, and then it's like, actually, you've drunk too much fucking water, and now you're dehydrated and you're drowning. Like, huh? And also, before people start going, oh, well, there's sugar. It's sugar-free. Shut up. You have people who go, no, it's sugar. It's not good for you. Diabetes. It's sugar-free. Shut up. There's also these really interesting little, like, jelly things that have loads of hydration in. They're basically designed for old people who basically, as you get older, you just get worse at knowing to hydrate yourself because you need to pee more often, or you have worse memory issues. I've been tempted to buy them to try them for myself, but also give them to my grandparents because they are both old and have bad memory and or don't want to go to the toilet 45,000 times a day, which is the other thing sacrificing my life to. Go piss girling. The only time I allow a girling at me. You can tell me to go piss girl, that's the one exception. You are the only exception. Go piss girl. Anyway, I'm going a bit delirious, getting hot and tired. So that's the end. I'll see you next week. Bye. I mean, at least I guess I ended the video feeling a bit more lighthearted than when I started. Bye.